That's just, what, 7 weeks out from Quad Rock?
Just 7 weeks. So our mission really is to pull out the key takeaways from how that rehearsal went. What did he learn?
Yeah.
What does it tell us about his prep? And for Western states.
Okay.
Okay, so like you said, it wasn't casual. The sources make that really clear. It was a very specific simulation.
Not just a fitness check.
No, definitely not. Roche apparently talked about needing a next house great kind of run, approaching it less about, winning and more about executing the plan perfectly, like a rehearsal.
Which is interesting because he also mentioned, didn't he, feeling kind of uncertain at the start?
He did. That feeling, apparently it's familiar from past races, but his choice, as the source puts it, was to just roll with this and use the day.
Okay, and using the day seems to mean getting everything right. So what specific strategies were they testing out? What did the sources say?
Well, they really went for it. They treated it like applying 100% the exact approach they planned for Western states.
Okay.
And two big things jump out: fueling and heat training.
Ah, the big ones for Western states.
Definitely. So for fueling, Roche details taking a gel every 20 minutes, and each one had 40 grams of carbs.
Every 20 minutes.
And then on top of that, bottles with sodium and scratch, the electrolyte and carb mix. The goal was a total intake between 140 and 160 grams of carbs per hour.
Whoa, 140 to 160 grams an hour. That sounds like a lot compared to, more traditional ultra fueling.
It is. It's presented as a pretty significant shift for the sport, maybe. The idea seems to be that you need that level of constant energy, especially for these really long, demanding races.
To avoid the bonk, basically.
Yep. Exactly. Keep that energy supply steady, particularly under stress like heat. And speaking of heat,
Right, the sources mentioned heat training too.
extensive heat training beforehand. And then during the race, he was actually using tools like ice bandanas and, get this, a Core 2 heat sensor.
To monitor his body temp in real time.
Yep, to see how his body was responding.
So how did that heat strategy work out on the day?
He actually noted feeling surprisingly good in the warm conditions, which he directly linked back to all that prep.
So the training paid off.
Seems like it. He even joked, apparently, about recommending heat suits now, and his performance kind of reflected that. He felt strong climbing, handled the technical descents okay.
Even though he maybe felt he wasn't pulling away initially?
Right, but then he quickly realized, he actually felt fantastic and could really push.
And push he certainly did. The source confirms he won the whole thing in 7 hours, 6 minutes. But here's the really eye-opening part. He didn't just win.
No, he absolutely shattered the course record.
By how much?
Took 14 minutes off it. It was a record from 2016 held by Ryan Smith, a local runner. And that 7.2 time, it was considered, really strong. Lots of top Colorado runners hadn't touched it.
So pretty impressive, as the race director apparently said.
Especially on a warm day.
Exactly. Not ideal conditions for a fast time.
That race director also had that interesting comparison, saying Quad Rock is so much harder and more technical than Western states.
Describing Western states as like a net downhill course way easier than this Quad Rock lower altitude.
Which is a fascinating take. What's the implication there?
Well, it suggests that if you can master the difficulty of Quad Rock, it might give you quite a bit of confidence for Western states, even though the challenges are different. Less technical, maybe.
Makes sense. The sources also touched on his mental game too, right? Like not looking at the start list.
He deliberately avoided it, even assuming tough guys like, say, Jim Walmsley might show up, just to keep his focus dialed in.
I also thought that part about seeing his son Leo on the course was quite powerful. Oh, he talked about how that moment reminded him to model vulnerability. Just the act of putting yourself out there, it shifted his focus a bit beyond just the win.
And finding motivation in the history of the sport, too.
Right. It seems like he's found this interesting balance. On one hand, immense confidence. He actually said he knew at the Quad Rock start line there was 0 chance I'd fail.
Wow.
But then at the same time, he's acknowledging and accepting that failure is possible at Western states. He knows he needs more fitness for WS, looking at that historical Leadville time conversion.
The one where Western states is typically an hour faster.
Exactly. But based on Quad Rock, he feels like maybe, just maybe, he's getting to that level now.
Okay, so let's try and wrap this up. Sources really paint a picture of a highly successful dress rehearsal.
Definitely. Marked by that dominant performance, smashing the course record, and seeming to nail those key strategies, the high-carb fueling, the heat management.
So the big takeaways are that win, breaking that tough record, and a successful real-world test of their specific race day plan.
Couldn't say it better.
And it seems like that built a pretty solid foundation of confidence, wouldn't you say? But interestingly, it's tempered by those moments you mentioned, gaining perspective or vulnerability, just enjoying the challenge itself.